You're about to witness something truly unexpected. The galaxy thought it knew humanity, thought it had us pegged. They just made the gravest mistake in a millennium. You can't miss this. The galactic calendar marked it as the 1000th Terran cycle since the Great Pacification. A millennium of enforced peace, overseen by the omnipotent, ancient *** Celestian Directorate ***. Their vast, crystalline fleets patrolled the nexus points, their diplomatic envoys, the luminaries, arbitrated every dispute, their technology so far beyond any other species that even contemplating defiance was seen as madness. For 1,000 years, their *** Grand Truce *** had held, a fragile, hard-won quiet after countless star-spanning wars had nearly consumed the cosmos. Humanity, a relative newcomer to the galactic stage, had adapted, albeit grudgingly, to the pervasive peace. Our expansion was slower, our conflicts internalized, our boundless energy channeled into science, art, and the endless pursuit of knowledge. We learned to navigate the bureaucratic labyrinths of the Directorate, to speak the arcane languages of 100 species, to curb our innate impulsiveness for the sake of the greater galactic harmony. Or so they thought. The official declaration of war arrived on a standard sublight courier, addressed directly to the *** United Earth Council ***. It wasn't broadcast across open channels, it was a personal, chilling message from the *** Cathar hegemony ***. The Cathar, a reptilian species known for their rigid honor codes and aggressive expansionist tendencies, had always chafed under the Celestian yoke. They saw the Grand Truce not as peace, but as stagnation, a humiliating leash on their martial spirit. For centuries, their diplomats had been polite, if distant, and their border skirmishes with other minor species were quickly quashed by luminary intervention. But beneath the surface, an ancient fire had been stoked. The declaration was a single, curt message, projected holographically onto the gleaming table in the council chambers in Neo-London. It showed the Cathar High Regent, a creature of cold scales and burning eyes, his voice resonating with ancient pride. To the species known as humanity, by ancient right and unbroken lineage, the Cathar hegemony declares formal war. Our fleets are en route. Prepare for your subjugation. There was no preamble, no justification, no grievance cited. Just the stark, unadorned statement of intent. The image flickered, then vanished, leaving behind only the shimmering outline of their crest, a stylized, devouring serpent. A stunned silence fell over the council chamber. Ambassador Anya Sharma, humanity's chief diplomat to the Directorate, a woman whose entire career had been dedicated to upholding the Grand Truce, felt a cold knot form in her stomach. A declaration of war was not merely an act of aggression, it was an act of defiance against the Celestian Directorate itself, an unforgivable violation of the millennium-old peace. Such a thing was unheard of. Every species knew the price of breaking the truce: swift, overwhelming intervention from the Celestian fleets, their dispassionate justice crushing any who dared to shatter the cosmic calm. The Cathar were signing their own death warrant. But as the seconds stretched into an uncomfortable minute, a peculiar sound began to ripple through the chamber. A cough. Then a chuckle. Then another, louder, more unrestrained. It started with the grizzled General Thorne, head of Earth's orbital defenses, a man whose face usually reflected only grim resolve. His shoulders began to shake. Soon, others joined him. Admirals, strategists, even some of the more pragmatic council members. The chuckles turned into full-throated laughter, echoing off the polished walls, a sound utterly out of place in such a solemn, dire moment. Ambassador Sharma stared, bewildered, then her own lips began to twitch. A nervous giggle escaped her. Subjugation? General Thorne finally managed to wheeze, wiping a tear from his eye. Oh, bless their scaly little hearts. They actually said subjugation. The laughter swelled. It wasn't a sound of hysteria, nor of disrespect for the gravity of the situation. It was a sound of profound, almost dizzying, amusement. It was the laughter of a species that had just been told it would be conquered by a foe utterly ignorant of its true nature. The Cathar, and indeed the entire galaxy, understood conflict in terms of fleets and firepower, of ancient grudges and territorial gains. They understood dominion. They understood fear. But they understood absolutely nothing of what humanity had been doing for the last 1,000 years, confined by a peace they hadn't chosen. They had no idea that the Grand Truce hadn't made humanity weak. It had simply made us bored. And a bored humanity, especially one forbidden from open warfare, was arguably the most dangerous force in the cosmos. The Cathar had just kicked the ant hill, entirely unaware that the ants had spent the last millennium developing antimatter slingshots and constructing a transdimensional hypercannon in their basement. The Cathar assault fleet, a vanguard of 200 destroyers and 3 dreadnoughts, breached the Sol system's outer perimeter with practiced precision. Their tactical readouts showed only token human defenses, automated mining platforms, research outposts, and a smattering of patrol corvettes. The Cathar High Commander, Xylar, a veteran of countless brutal pacifications, permitted himself a satisfied snarl. This would be quicker than he anticipated. His forces were already locking targeting solutions, preparing for the customary orbital bombardment that preceded ground incursions. No resistance, a junior officer queried, his multi-lensed eye scanning the empty space. It is unusual, High Commander. Humans are weak, Xylar rasped, his throat sacs vibrating. Their reliance on the Celestian truce has atrophied their martial spirit. They are a species of soft thinkers, not warriors. Just as the Devastator, Xylar's flagship, prepared to unleash its first volley, a signal pierced their comms. It wasn't a defiance, or a plea for surrender. It was a data packet. A single, compressed file, broadcast on an open, untraceable frequency. Xylar, intrigued, ordered it projected onto the main view screen. The image that bloomed was bizarre. Not a battle map, not a demand for parley, but a holographic projection of a human stage, bathed in spotlights. A single human figure, slender and clad in loose, flowing garments, stood before a microphone. Behind them, a vast, complex instrument, unlike anything the Cathar had ever seen, pulsed with soft, internal lights. Then, the human began to sing. It was a sound utterly alien to the Cathar. A cascade of complex, overlapping harmonies, shifting rhythms, and frequencies that seemed to ripple through the very air. It wasn't loud, or aggressive. It was beautiful. And utterly disorienting. What is this nonsense? Xylar roared, disgusted. Jam their frequency. Fire. But his officers were stumbling, clutching their heads. The human singing, though beautiful, was causing acute discomfort. Their multi-lensed eyes watered, their equilibrium systems failed. The sound seemed to resonate deep within their very bone structure, causing a subtle, maddening nausea. Then, the Celestian luminaries appeared. Not in person, but as shimmering, ethereal projections that materialized on every bridge in the Cathar fleet, their faces impassive. Their voices, usually calm and resonant, now held a chilling edge. Cathar hegemony. You have violated the Grand Truce. Prepare for judgment. Xylar scoffed. Your judgment is too late, luminaries. We are already within Sol system. Are you a luminary projection calmly countered? Or are you merely where humanity wants you to be? Just then, the human singing intensified, reaching a crescendo of impossible, overlapping notes. The Cathar ships, specifically their navigation and targeting arrays, began to glitch. Not a system failure, but a subtle, precise interference. The coordinates on their screens shifted, their target locks wavered, their jump drive screamed in protest as they failed to calibrate. They weren't being destroyed, they were being redirected. Their long-range targeting systems began to cycle wildly, locking onto each other, then the distant sun, then empty space. The navigation computers, instead of calculating jump coordinates back to Cathar space, were plotting courses to the heart of a nearby gaseous nebula, or towards a rogue black hole. This wasn't a weapon of destruction. This was a weapon of confusion. Humanity wasn't fighting their ships. They were fighting their systems. The music wasn't just disorienting, it was a carrier wave for hyper-focused, low-energy quantum fluctuations, designed to scramble the Cathar's highly centralized, network technology. Their rigid, efficient command structure, which relied on perfect data flow, became their greatest weakness. Chaos erupted on the Devastator's bridge. We're losing targeting lock on the human planets. Our systems are cross-referencing. The fleet's navigation matrix is corrupted. Ships are breaking formation. We're receiving orders from ourselves. Xylar watched in dawning horror as his disciplined fleet devolved into a swirling mass of confused, undirected rage. Ships narrowly avoided collisions, their weapons firing erratically into the void, or worse, at each other. The human on the stage continued to sing, their performance now accompanied by subtle, pulsing light displays from the massive instrument behind them, each pulse a new wave of calculated chaos in the Cathar ranks. The Cathar had declared war, expecting a fight. Instead, they got a concert. And it was driving them insane. Part 3, The Cacophony of Collapse. High Commander Xylar slammed his clawed fist onto his console, sparks showering around his frustrated digits. Report! Why are we not firing? Why are we not moving? High Commander, our targeting systems are cycling through impossible vectors, a frantic officer screeched, pointing at a console displaying a rapidly changing kaleidoscope of coordinates. One moment we're locked on Sol 3, the next, it's a phantom moon outside the system. The navigational matrices are correlating ghost signals. We cannot plot a coherent jump. The human music, now evolving into something even more intricate, wound its way deeper into the Cathar fleet's highly synchronized neural networks. The Cathar military relied on a seamless, almost telepathic link between all ships, a collective consciousness that allowed for instantaneous tactical adjustments. But this musical's weapon was introducing imperceptible distortions into that network, turning their greatest strength into a crippling liability. Orders became suggestions, tactical data became abstract art, and synchronized maneuvers became a grotesque ballet of near misses and accidental broadsides. On the bridge of the Devastator, the comms began to flood with increasingly desperate, then incoherent, chatter. The Razorclaw is firing on the Vanguard. They think it's a human phantom. Our shields are failing, self-induced resonance cascade. We are being ordered to dance. Who sent that order? Xylar watched in dawning horror as his fleet, the pride of the Cathar hegemony, began to tear itself apart, not from external attack, but from internal, technologically induced madness. his grand dreadnoughts, designed for siege warfare, became lumbering, confused behemoths, their immense weapons firing wildly, sometimes even scoring direct hits on their own allies, convinced they were engaging invisible human threats. The smaller destroyers, more agile but equally susceptible, zipped around erratically, like frustrated insects caught in an invisible web. Then, the Celestian luminaries reappeared on the view screen, their calm, glowing forms radiating an almost pitying aura. Caithar High Commander, their collective voice resonated, your defiance of the Grand Truce has caused immense self-inflicted damage. You have disrupted galactic peace, albeit in a manner we could not have foreseen. This chaos is unsustainable. Cease this torture. Xyla rasped, his pride shattering under the weight of his collapsing command. Order your humans to stop this madness. We have given no orders, High Commander, a luminary replied, its tone unwavering. The humans are merely expressing themselves. Their cultural response to your declaration of war. And our directives forbid intervention in self-resolving conflicts, however unconventional they may become. This was the ultimate humiliation. The Celestian Directorate, the very enforcers of galactic peace, were standing by, watching the Caithar fleet descend into technological delirium, and calling it self-resolving. Humanity hadn't fired a single shot, yet they were winning a war with sound and abstract physics. On the human stage, the singer bowed, the final, lingering notes of the performance fading into silence. The lights on the grand instrument dimmed. And as the music ceased, the chaos in the Caithar fleet did not immediately stop. Instead, a new, chilling pattern emerged. The random firing slowed. The erratic movement ceased. But the ships remained locked in place, their systems still scrambled, their jump drives refusing to engage, now trapped in complex, overlapping gravitational fields generated by the human orchestra. They were perfectly immobile, floating, impotent targets. Admiral Jian Li, observing from the Prometheus, a human command vessel that had maintained complete radio silence, finally spoke. His voice was calm, almost bored. The overture is complete. Time for the main act. The Caithar fleet, immobilized and bewildered, suddenly found themselves bathed in the targeting lasers of Celestian Directorate ships. Not the massive, crystalline dreadnoughts, but the smaller, highly agile intervention cruisers. Their weapons, precise and non-lethal, began to disable the Caithar ships one by one, methodically deactivating their power cores, their shield generators, their comm arrays. The Celestian Directorate was finally intervening, not to defend humanity, but to restore order by dismantling the now helpless aggressors. The Caithar had triggered the ultimate galactic sanction, not through a grand battle, but by losing their minds to human laughter and song. The Celestian Directorate's intervention was swift and decisive, yet utterly devoid of the usual gravitas. Their crystalline ships, sleek and silent, moved through the chaotic Caithar fleet like benevolent predators, disarming each vessel with precision strikes that powered down systems without a single explosive burst. The Caithar, still reeling from the psychological and technological assault of the human music, offered little resistance. Many of their crews were found huddled in prayer, or in gibbering madness, convinced their ancestors had cursed them. On the main Celestian luminary vessel, a vast, iridescent construct known as the Harmonia, the senior luminaries observed the cleanup with detached efficiency. Luminary Prime, a being whose form shifted like liquid starlight, addressed the holographic projection of Ambassador Anya Sharma. Humanity, Luminary Prime's voice resonated, a symphony of pure thought. Your method of defense is unprecedented. You have broken no truce, yet you have utterly crippled a major galactic power. This presents a unique challenge to the Grand Pacification Protocols. Ambassador Sharma, now back on Earth, sat calmly in the United Earth Council chambers, a faint, almost imperceptible smile playing on her lips. Luminary Prime, we merely responded to a declaration of war with our cultural expressions. We developed our arts and sciences under the auspice of your peace. Is it our fault if Cathar technology is unmusical? A ripple of something akin to amusement, or perhaps bewilderment, seemed to pass through the Luminary collective. Your cultural expression effectively induced a systemic neurological and technological collapse in their fleet. This is not standard. We detected no energy signatures, no conventional weaponry. Precisely, Sharma affirmed. We fought with what we had. 1,000 years of suppressed ingenuity, channeled into the only avenues available to us. We call it aesthetic warfare. The Cathar sought to subjugate us with force, we merely showed them the superior force of our collective creativity. The implications of this aesthetic warfare sent shockwaves through the Celestian Directorate. Their grand truce was built on the principle of preventing overt conflict, of containing direct aggression. But how do you contain a species that fights with music? How do you enforce peace against a foe whose weapon is knowledge, expressed through complex mathematical harmonies and quantum resonance? Humanity had, inadvertently, exposed a gaping loophole in the very foundation of galactic order. The Cathar hegemony, stripped of its fleet and its pride, was left in ruins. Its vast empire, held together by fear, began to fracture as oppressed client species, sensing weakness, rose up in rebellion. The Celestian Directorate, bound by their own rigid protocols, could not interfere in these internal conflicts, as no direct declaration of war had been made after their intervention. Humanity had simply removed the Cathar's ability to suppress their own people. The other galactic powers, initially relieved that humanity's music hadn't been aimed at them, now watched with growing unease. The Cathar had been arrogant, but they were a known quantity. Humanity, however, was now an enigma, a wild card. Their capacity for unconventional warfare, for weaponizing seemingly benign aspects of their culture, was terrifying. What else had they been bored enough to invent during a millennium of peace? Deep in the classified archives of the United Earth Council, General Thorne reviewed the latest intelligence reports. The Cathar were broken. The Celestian Directorate was baffled. And humanity had barely scratched the surface of what it had developed during its peaceful confinement. He looked at a secure terminal displaying schematics for Project Biorhythm Harmonization and smiled. The galaxy had thought humanity weak. Now, they were merely confused. Soon, they would be terrified. Part 5. The Unseen Architect of Peace. The Celestian Directorate, for the first time in millennia, found its grand truce facing an existential crisis. The Cathar hegemony, a long-standing pillar of galactic power, was no longer a threat. It was a fractured collection of systems riddled with civil unrest and economic collapse, its military rendered impotent by humanity's bizarre, non-lethal warfare. Yet, humanity had committed no overt act of aggression that the luminaries could condemn. Their intervention had merely disarmed the Cathar and then observed as the inevitable unraveling occurred. This was peace, but not as the Celestians understood it. It was a peace forged through psychological trauma and technological subversion, rather than overwhelming force or careful arbitration. Luminary Prime, in a rare, unscheduled address to the collective consciousness of the Directorate, voiced the growing concern. Humanity's methods defy categorization. They do not seek conquest, yet they dismantle empires. They do not employ conventional weapons, yet their art brings down fleets. This aesthetic warfare poses a fundamental question: is peace maintained by enforced stillness, or by the incapacitation of all who would disturb it, even through means unseen? Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the whispers about humanity intensified. Other species, who had once feared the Cathar, now feared humanity more. Their fear wasn't of overwhelming firepower, but of the unknown. What other hidden talents did these soft thinkers possess? What other aspects of their chaotic, illogical culture could be weaponized? Diplomatic missions from numerous species began arriving at Earth's orbital stations, not with demands, but with nervous inquiries, veiled offers of alliance, and desperate pleas for understanding. They wanted to know humanity's secrets, hoping to learn to defend against such an insidious threat, or perhaps even to wield it. On Earth, the United Earth Council, having quietly coordinated the entire Musicals offensive, began to shift its focus. General Thorn, now a legend among humanity's strategic minds, oversaw the delicate process of integrating the liberated Cathar client species into a new, informal alliance. These species, finally free from their oppressors, looked to humanity not just as liberators, but as enigmatic saviors. Humanity, it turned out, was surprisingly good at building coalitions, especially when the alternative was the wrath of a species that fought with opera. Ambassador Sharma, however, bore a heavy weight. The laughter that had filled the council chambers after the declaration of war had faded. The thrill of proving the Cathar wrong had given way to the sobering reality of the power humanity now wielded. The Celestian Directorate, for all their confusion, still held immense power. And humanity had poked a hole in their perfect, millennium-old truce. The question wasn't if the Celestians would act, but how. The answer came not as a threat, but as an invitation. A luminary envoy, a physical manifestation of starlight and pure energy, materialized directly within the council chambers on Earth. Its presence filled the room with a calm, immense power. Humanity, the luminary spoke, its voice a gentle hum within their minds. The Grand Truce was designed for a galaxy of predictable conflicts. You have shown us a new variable. We cannot allow for such creativity to exist unsupervised. Therefore, the Celestian Directorate extends an offer. An unprecedented offer. We invite humanity to become architects of the new peace. Not under our rule, but as our partners. To help us understand, and perhaps even contain, the very forces you have unleashed. Your unique perspective is now, reluctantly, deemed essential. General Thorn exchanged a look with Ambassador Sharma. The offer was a double-edged sword. It meant a seat at the highest table of galactic power, an unprecedented rise for a species so young. But it also meant sacrificing some of the very unconventionality that had given them their edge. It meant revealing their true depth, their full potential. Sharma, after a long moment of contemplation, stood. Luminary. We accept. On one condition. Her gaze met the shimmering form of the envoy, a flicker of that earlier, knowing amusement returning to her eyes. You allow us to keep our instruments. The luminary's form seemed to ripple, a silent acknowledgement of the human wit. The galaxy had truly been set ablaze, not by plasma fire, but by the laughter of a species that refused to be put in a box. And in the ashes of the old order, a new, far more complicated peace was about to be forged, with humanity, the masters of the unseen, at its very heart. If you were utterly captivated by this story of human ingenuity, then smash that like button right now. Subscribe for more mind-bending HFY sagas, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single moment of humanity's incredible journey through the stars.